hitman accidentally kills a key figure on a mission, causing chaos. Amidst the disorder, he saves a dancer and falls for her. They begin a passionate romance, but doctors tell him he has a rare disease and won't live long. He hires other hitmen to end his life, only to learn from his doctor that it was a mistake. He's perfectly healthy. What follows is a hilarious and unexpected series of events that you won't want to miss.
In the opening scene of the film, a high-ranking individual enters a theater accompanied by his bodyguards. A man named Joe Flood, a professional hitman, watches him closely from a distance. The bodyguards take their positions as a woman named Maze performs a unique dance with other dancers on stage. Joe swiftly takes out one of the bodyguards and quietly makes his way to the important person's room, aiming his silenced gun at him. However, instead of panicking, the man offers Joe a deal. If he spares his life, he will pay him as much money as he wants. But Joe isn't interested in money. Without hesitation, he pulls the trigger, killing the man, and swiftly makes his escape. As he descends the stairs, an intense headache strikes him out of nowhere. Meanwhile, one of the bodyguards discovers his superior is dead and immediately opens fire at the guards, causing chaos to erupt. Amid the turmoil, Joe notices Maze, the dancer, collapsing in the crowd, with people trampling over her in their frantic bid to escape. Without a second thought, Joe scoops her up and rushes her out of the theater, protecting her from the chaos. Maze thanks him, but Joe's pounding headache prevents him from engaging in any further conversation. In an instant, as Maze chats with her fellow dancers about helping Joe, he disappears into the night. Later at home, Joe finds Maze's phone left behind and takes a moment to look at it before falling asleep. The next day, Joe visits the doctor. After getting a CT scan and having some blood drawn, the doctor tells him the results will be ready soon. After a few questions about his medical history and possible causes for his headache, Joe is sent home. Determined to find Maze, Joe tracks down the building where she practices dancing. He returns her phone to the staff, and Maze spots him, thrilled to see him. She quickly hands him her number, suggesting they should go out sometime. Although Joe glances at the number, he tosses it into the trash, seemingly uninterested in a romantic relationship. But soon after, he reconsiders, retrieves the number from the trash, and later enters it into his contacts. He messages her on social media to set up a dinner date. During their date, sparks fly, and they quickly develop a deep connection. Joe balances his days taking out targets for his missions and his nights filled with love and romance with Maze. Soon after, Joe meets with his boss and shares the news about his blossoming romance. Inviting his boss and his wife to a surprise birthday party Maze has planned for him, they all share a memorable night together. The following day, Joe returns to the doctor's office after receiving a call about his CT scan results. The doctor delivers the shocking news. Joe has a rare disease called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a rapid neurological decline with no treatment options. The doctor grimly informs him that he may only have 3 months left to live. When Joe asks about the certainty of the results, the doctor confirms that 3 separate labs have verified the diagnosis. Joe heads home and starts researching his symptoms and condition. After gathering information, he collects all his weapons and cash, stashing it away in a secret spot. He then tosses his assassination gear off a bridge into the water, symbolically cutting ties with his past. The next day, he visits his employer and shares the grim news. He's got an incurable disease and doesn't have long to live. He asks his boss to transfer all his assets to Maze and offers $2 million to rally the assassins he knows to take him out. His boss, however, flatly refuses, stating, "No matter how much you pay me, I can't bring myself to kill someone I've respected and worked with." But he offers to help Joe transfer his assets to Maze. Desperate, Joe seeks out another option, a woman named Mariana, who happens to be a former enemy. She's a suitable candidate for his plan since Joe had killed her father in the past. They meet, and Joe asks her to pitch the job to the assassins in her employ, offering them the $2 million bounty to take him out. Mariana eagerly accepts and sends the offer to her top-tier killers. One of them, a professional hitman named Love Doll, sees the offer but declines, saying $2 million just isn't worth his time. The same offer goes out to a Korean hitman and a pair of mercenary biker brothers who jump at the chance. Joe, sensing the heat, turns off his phone to avoid being tracked by the killers and arranges to meet Maze. At that moment, Mariana's right-hand man snaps a photo of them together, just in case he needs leverage later to identify Maze. Knowing his time is short, Joe tells Maze that something has come up in his life and he can't continue their relationship because it might put her in danger. Maze is heartbroken but kisses him goodbye, understanding the weight of his words. Later, he messages her from home, promising to explain everything soon and apologizing for the sudden distance. Just then, he reads a message from the doctor, apologizing for the mix-up and revealing that the test results were wrong. He doesn't have any illness after all. Realizing the danger that's been lurking, Joe's heart races. Meanwhile, the Korean hitman and his crew track Joe's location using GPS. Joe, anticipating their move, sets up traps around his place, preparing for the confrontation that's about to unfold. He's ready, but this time, it's not just about survival, it's about turning the tables on those who think they can take him down. Joe waits in his ambush spot as a group of assassins led by the overconfident Go-Yang approaches, taunting him about their plans to take him out. He sends his killers in first, but Joe, being the skilled killer he is, takes them down one by one with his bare hands, leaving no one standing. Finally, it's time for the leader to face Joe. He strides in, confident he can finish him off. But in a split second, Joe throws a sharp object and takes him out. As a final touch, he lights a cigarette for him and walks away, but not before he rigs a laser trap connected to a bomb for the last of his crew, sending her up in flames. After causing chaos, Joe calls Mariana to cancel the hit. "I've changed my mind. I don't want anyone to kill me anymore. Keep the money. It's yours," he says casually. Mariana, furious, retorts, "You killed my father, and you'll pay for that. I'll send every killer in the world after you." Joe laughs it off, saying, "Let them come. I'll take out their fathers too." Knowing how unstable Mariana is, Joe sends Maze a voice message warning her that some people might come looking for revenge and that she should leave town for a safe place. He promises to explain everything later. Just as he's finished, a pair of biker assassins find him and try to corner him on their motorcycles. But Joe pulls off an impressive counterattack, taking them both out with style before riding off on one of their bikes. After their deaths, Mariana gets the news and, upset, orders her right-hand man to ensure Joe is eliminated. She also realizes that to catch Joe, she'll need to take his loved ones hostage. They know exactly where to find Maze. In the next scene, Mariana doubles the bounty, and immediately Lovedoll jumps on the offer. In Scotland, two hitman brothers named Rory and Angus also accept the deal, and across in England, two female killers, Ginny and Tanya, respond positively as well. Finally, a skilled Spanish assassin who's also a dancing master gets the offer, and soon a whole crew is gearing up to take Joe Flood down for a whopping $4 million. Meanwhile, Maze listens to Joe's voice message with a friend, realizing he must have had good reasons for pushing her away. Joe, in need of medical attention for the injuries he sustained, heads to his boss's house. He explains that the doctor made a mistake and that he's actually fine. Now, he has to face a slew of deadly assassins who've come from all corners of the world for a price on his head. His boss gifts him some old explosives, dynamite, and grenades he's had lying around. Then the boss's wife steps in and massages Joe's neck, alleviating his headaches and dizziness. Grateful, Joe thanks them both, feeling a bit more ready for the chaotic storm ahead. In the next scene, Mariana gets in touch with Lovedoll, sending him Maze's location and instructing him to take her hostage as leverage. Lovedoll teams up with a chatty driver, and they stake out Maze's place, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Just as Maze is about to leave, she gets a notification of a hefty bank transfer, 500,000 euros. But before she can escape, Lovedoll and his driver block her path. In a flash, Lovedoll knocks her out and hustles her into their car. Meanwhile, Joe's boss calls him with a plan. Joe needs to set up an ambush at a designated location where all the assassins will gather. If he can take them out, he might just save Maze. Mariana instructs her right-hand man, Maximilius, to send the new location to the assassins. Joe has already set up traps in the Schatzerberg castle, preparing for the impending showdown. One by one, the assassins arrive, starting with the Scottish brothers. Joe surprises them with a grenade and engages in a fierce fight. He activates one of his traps, taking Rory out of the equation. Next, he faces Angus and finishes him off with a swift knife strike. Just then, Tonya and Ginny burst onto the scene, firing wildly. Joe narrowly escapes their gunfire until one of them accidentally triggers another trap, leading to a massive explosion. In the chaos, Joe uses grenades strapped to Ginny's body, sending her flying into Tonya, taking both of them out in one glorious blast. But the action isn't over yet. The Spanish dancer assassin appears next, and an intense hand-to-hand combat ensues, complete with swordplay. Just as Joe gains the upper hand, Lovedoll arrives last, armed and ready to make his move. Joe manages to knock the Spanish assassin down, but suddenly he unleashes a hail of bullets, forcing Joe to retreat. In a twist of fate, one of Joe's own traps activates and blows him to pieces, ending his threat. Moments later, Lovedoll calls Joe, taunting him about Maze's kidnapping. He proposes a deal. Lovedoll can work with him until he gets his hands on the money. "Your life for that, girls," he suggests. Just then, Maximilius and his crew show up, and Lovedoll warns Joe about their presence. Meanwhile, Maze, playing for time, pretends to feel sick and asks to step out of the car for some fresh air. Once the driver, a clueless goon, lets her out, she grabs a stick and knocks him out cold, making her escape. As Joe deals with the remaining Maximilius's crew, he sets off his explosive traps, catching many of them off guard and taking them out one by one. After the plan with Lovedoll is set, Joe is supposed to surrender himself in exchange for Maze's freedom, allowing Lovedoll to pocket the $4 million. But just as things are about to go down, Maze, having knocked out Lovedoll's driver, crashes into Lovedoll with a car, rescuing Joe in the nick of time before they can get caught by Maximilius's crew. After the chaos, Lovedoll is furious with his driver for messing everything up. Maximilius informs him that the contract is still on, but Lovedoll declares he won't settle for $4 million anymore. "Raise it to $6 million, he demands. Meanwhile, in the car, Joe finally comes clean to Maze about why he pushed her away. He explains that he was trying to protect her from these people and reveals that the doctor had mistakenly told him he was dying from an incurable disease. All this was to keep her safe, and he planned to leave all his assets to her. He also says, "I was a hired killer, but I only took out bad people." Maze, shocked, responds, "I hope that's all you've done, because I won't have a killer for a baby's dad. You need to step away from this life. I'm pregnant and no more lies." Just as Joe promises to do better, she suddenly collapses. She's been shot. He cradles her and rushes to a nearby church, asking the priest for help. After treating his wound, Maze wakes up in Joe's arms. Then he suggests, "Now that we're here, why not get married in front of this priest and God? We might not get another chance, especially since I'm about to become a father." They ask the priest to marry them, but he sets one condition: Joe must confess his past. In a private room, Joe lays it all out: his life as a mercenary, the bad people he's killed. The priest, despite his shock, agrees to perform the ceremony. Just as the priest is about to pronounce them husband and wife, Lovedoll bursts in, shooting the priest and throwing everything into chaos. Maximilius and his crew arrive right behind him, and a massive fight breaks out. Lovedoll, wanting to take Joe down himself, gets tangled up with Maximilius's men. During the fray, some debris from the church falls on Lovedoll, incapacitating him. In a surprising twist, Maze catches Maximilius off guard before he can act, taking him out with a gun in a stunning display. Joe and Maisie seize their chance and escape, leaving Lovedoll behind. In the final scenes, Joe's boss confronts Mariana, catching her off guard. "Just like your father, you've broken the rules," he says before shooting her in the head, finally putting an end to her threat. Meanwhile, we see Lovedoll, having survived the ordeal, no longer interested in going after Joe. Finally, Joe and Maze emerge from the church, where the priest, recovering from his earlier injury, performs the wedding ceremony. They become husband and wife, and as Joe lifts Maze into his arms, they get into a car. The film ends on a hopeful note, with them driving off into their uncertain future together.